What's going on, people? We are Tottenham TV, back here for a match review stream for you guys. Brentford 2, Tottenham 2, and our first sightings of a competitive game of ANGE ball. And you know, there were good things, there were bad things. I think there was a few teething problems maybe going into our first game, maybe some fitness issues as well, which we can talk about. But today, you are very lucky today because we're starting now. We're doing the match review, player ratings, Twitter reacts, and 5 takeaways all on this stream for you guys today. So in terms of Twitter reacts, if you do want us to react to anything, please do tag us on Twitter and we'll get that up for you and react to anything.
I've posted a link to the chat.
So there you go. Our Twitter handle is posted live on the top of the live chat. So if you do want to tag us in anything, we will react to it when we get round to Twitter reacts. But let's start off with the match review from yesterday. And I think that you can definitely take a lot of positives from what happened on that pitch yesterday. There were a couple of negatives and like some teething problems, like I said before. But I guess let's start from the beginning. I mean, it was an absolute... the game started off at 100 million miles per hour, didn't it? I mean, it was an eventful first half, to say the least. And from the first minute...
Even before kickoff, didn't have any water.
I know. I was there in the stadium, and when I went to the toilet, I realised there was no water in the taps. There was still no water in the taps. I was like, oh, this is strange. And then the kickoff was delayed, but I didn't put the two and two together to realise that's why the delay was. But look, I think the game started off... I think Brentford maybe started off more on the front foot in the early stages. And Romero gets that knock to the head really early on, straight away. What was it, in the 12th minute, that free kick comes in from James Maddison and a rocket header from Cuti Romero. It really was, but what a cross that was from Mads.
Right on point. It's lovely to have a player who's going to provide us such delivery from free kick situations like that. You just know he's got that in him, in his locker. But talking about the Romero situation, obviously he went off, that was his last action of the game, he went off. Being at the ground, did you notice anything in Romero, like him being unstable or anything, or is just a thing that maybe professionals would notice?
No, I didn't notice anything. I didn't notice a clash of heads before the goal happened, like a few ways before the goal happened, and then I don't know. All I saw from the stands was Romero arguing with Ange to not come off. And I was like, why is he coming off? I didn't really understand it. I thought maybe he's got a knock or something, but I didn't realise it was concussion. And then it came to light just after the sub that it was a concussion. Well, it wasn't a concussion sub, but it wasn't a concussion sub.
Well, if you saw, watching the game on TV, there was just after he scored, there was clearly some concern from players. I was just wondering if there's anything you saw on the ground.
No, nothing from the stands. No one really mentioned anything either around me. But from what you saw on TV, you clearly saw after he scored that he just wasn't right. He was holding his head, no real celebration in there as well. He looked a bit dazed and confused as well. So I think the right decision was made by Ange Postecoglou and the staff. Ange did mention that the medical team, after that knock to the head, they were keeping a close eye on him. But funnily enough, like he gets whacked in the head. He's clearly not right, and then he scores a bullet header, and that cross as well was like a really hard cross. So it must have hurt his head a lot, and obviously, hopefully, he'll be all right. But he was arguing with Ange a lot to not come off. But I think the right decision was made, wasn't it?
And it was but it was interesting because there was quite a lengthy VAR process of review for the goal, for the offside. And you would have thought maybe the sub could have been made during the review, but after review, like Romero gives like another celebration, and then like he got taken off immediately after that. So it must have been frustrating for him. And what was also a bit annoying is he actually started the game really well, Romero, and I actually thought he was being really aggressive and he was winning some really good headers and actually setting us up on attacks and stuff like that. So it was a bit of a blow to lose him after 15 minutes just after he scored as well. And I think as well, just after we scored, Brentford then started taking control of the game. Yeah,
no, they did, and they started peppering us. They started, coming down the side of, I think it was Emerson mainly, to be honest, because I think they gave Emerson a bit of a torrid time yesterday. I think he stood up to the challenge a lot. I like the way he came into the midfield and he was winning the ball back quite a number of times, but I think Rico Henry was giving him a really hard time for a majority of the game.
Yeah, I think Emerson, I don't want to blame totally on the fact that he had to play a bit an inverted role, and then maybe He had to adjust from going inverted when you're defending to going out wide. Sorry, when you're in possession, you're inverted, and going out wide when you're defending, and then you have to adjust that position very quickly. But I think in terms of like the second goal, I don't think you can blame that, because that's from a free kick situation. He was always in the right position, and he just got done. But Rico Henry was really causing us problems down that side. We know as well late right at the end of the first half as well, he also got a lot of joy down the left, and Mbeumo missed an open goal. But there are warning signs. Obviously, the penalty was beforehand. I guess we'll touch on that. Son making the foul in the box, Jensen going in, Son tracking him, but they were getting in down the sides and in the underlaps quite consistently. And one thing that was a bit of a worry for me is especially in the first half, it was more of an issue that they were able to beat our press pretty consistently. I didn't think our pressing game was that impressive yesterday. I thought that when Brentford were able to get the ball on the ground and we were pressing high and trying to win the ball in the final third, I actually thought Brentford it was too easy for them to play through our press and then all of a sudden getting on our back four on the attack, and that was a bit of a worry, especially in the first half. And I think at times our defence was a bit messy in that first half. When it comes to touching on the penalty though, and just in the key incidents, I thought it was a penalty. There's clearly contact from Son. I think if the referee gives it there and then, I've personally got no complaints about the penalty being given. I am frustrated that in my book it was a soft penalty, and VAR going back to that, even though he didn't sweep his leg, he'd made contact with his leg and it was a foul. But for VAR, I think for me to go back to that, I think VAR should only be going back for blatant penalties and massive errors missed by the referee. And I think I think other fans, will argue whether that's a penalty or not. I think it's a bit of a not 50-50, but I think it was a bit up in the air, in my opinion, whether it was a penalty for sure. And I think VAR shouldn't, in my opinion, be getting involved in those kind of incidences. So it's a bit frustrating that the game had played a couple of minutes or whatever, a minute or so after that incident, and they pulled it back for a soft penalty when I think the game probably should have played on. They should have stuck with the on-field decision, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think. Look, I don't think you can really talk about the decision in a bad light too much if they do eventually come to the right decision. I get what you're saying. Maybe they, for clear and obvious and big decisions like that, which are blatant penalties which they miss, that they go back for them. And sometimes with these ones that are a bit up in the air, they don't go back to. But I do think, all in all, if they go back and get the right decision, I think it's a good thing, in my opinion. It
reminded me, though, of if you remember when VAR was first implemented, just through lockdown, they were literally giving penalties for VAR decisions for little taps in the box and stuff. And then they decided to move away from that and make a higher bar for intervention. And I thought that was a good decision. You didn't want to see penalties just for little taps in the penalty area. And I thought this decision in this game was a bit of a reversion to more going back to softer decisions. That was a bit frustrating. I don't think it's as soft as maybe a lot of the ones that you're talking about in those moments, because I do think that the attacker takes the ball around Son and Son clips him and he goes down. So I think that I think it's the right decision. It's a kick and there's contact, but it wasn't a sweep of the leg. I think if he sweeps it and he brings him down, I think it's a lot clearer. I think contact's not always a foul. And just because I know it is a foul in this case, but I think it was a soft foul. I don't think it was a blatant penalty, in my opinion. So I think it was a penalty. Look, I don't want to stuck on this point too long. I just think it was a penalty. I'm just a bit frustrated VAR intervention, but I think at the end of the day, Brentford will feel like the right decision was made. So I think it is what it is. You just got to live with it.
And that's the way I feel about it as well. Is I was obviously frustrated to give away a penalty, but I do think the right decision came to light in the end. And Vicario gets booked during the penalty decision.
Yeah, I didn't see what it was for.
Because these things are becoming more prevalent. The referees have been given an instruction to, if players are arguing with the ref, or if they're crowding the ref, or if they're complaining to the ref, they're going to get booked. And that's what Vicario was doing. He was in the ref's ear talking to him about probably why the decision shouldn't have been given, and he gets booked for it.
Did you see what was going on? He was.
I just saw a match of the day.
Oh, you didn't actually see it at the ground?
No.
Because the TV cameras, what we were watching, they didn't actually show the incident. They kind of just took a shot to Vicario and he was booked, so I didn't really see what happened.
Yeah, I just saw a match of the day. He was in the ref's ear, basically. That's what happened.
I see. Okay, and then obviously Mbeumo puts it away. It's 1-1. And at that point, Brentford gained a bit of momentum. And then they hit us with, the 2-1 pretty soon after, which was a bit of a defensive calamity, I think.
But it was. It definitely was. I mean, Emerson for that goal gets done on the left-hand side or our right-hand side. And we should be doing a lot more to stop that goal happening. And these goals are so avoidable. And obviously it gets because first of all, if Mickey van der Ven doesn't touch that ball, that's not a goal.
Yeah.
Right? Because it was literally a poor shot into Vicario's arms.
He would have saved it.
It was so frustrating and so unjust and so unlucky for Mickey van der Ven, who was having a great game, by the way. Just clips on him and then it goes and loops over Vicario and it's in the goal. So when you look at it and the two goals that we conceded, one was, a lucky penalty, and the other one was a lucky deflection off Mickey van der Ven. So the two goals we actually conceded, as much as Brentford were putting on top of us, were probably very fortuitous for Brentford.
But they did miss that open goal right at the end of the half as well.
Yeah,
so you got to pretty much say that should have been a goal. So we got
and in that moment, Emerson gets done as well.
Exactly. Rico Henry was causing all sorts of trouble down the left-hand side. I felt like we were good in possession. Without really testing Brentford going forward. We created a few similar to some pre-season. To be fair, I think this game followed on from what we were seeing in pre-season. I think a lot of good possession, a lot of nice passing, without creating openings, without really creating a lot of clear-cut opportunities. But you can see what Ange is trying to do, and it's not easy to dominate possession, dominate Premier League games to the level we did yesterday. And it was very good that even so soon in Ange's tenure, we're already seeing possession numbers like we're seeing, and we're seeing Tottenham keeping the ball a lot more. And I think in spurts, we are definitely looking creative, and when we are penning them in and we are able to stop them countering, we do look a very dominant team. And
look, let's get this right. You're playing Brentford away. This ain't an easy game. I think only Arsenal out of the top 6 won there last year. Not many teams will go there and pick up 3 points. And I think we gave a really good account of ourselves. We got better in terms of the way we were defending and the way we let Brentford play through our press and get round the back of us a lot in the second half. I thought Ange sorted out a lot of those problems at half time. But after that first half, where you would say it was a bit of I would say Brentford maybe just about had the better of it, but it was more or less an even game in my opinion in that first half.
Right at the end.
We did equalise right at the end. With a great goal, in my opinion. But what was your opinion at half-time? How did you think that first half went?
I thought it went okay. I didn't think we were brilliant. I thought defensively, Brentford were causing us way too much trouble. I thought pressing-wise, as I said before, I thought they were beating our press way too easily, and that was a cause for concern. But I did like the way we were looking in possession. I thought we started the game after Brentford initial bit. We got the goal when we were looking quite good at that point, but then Romero went off, and there was we were getting loads of yellow cards. Like Skip got booked, and Sanchez came on and got booked. Madison got booked. Vicario got booked. So there was a lot of incidences going on, and it was kind of hard for us to deal with. But I thought we ended the half really strongly. Apart from that Mbeumo miss,
we did.
I thought we ended the half really well. I wouldn't say the goal was reward for our efforts, but I think it was definitely an indication of us growing back into the game and taking control of the game. And I really like just us throwing caution to the wind. And I know it looks dangerous when we're getting counter-attacked, especially at times yesterday. We were pretty much leaving a 2-on-2 at some points with our back two and Brentford's front two, which was definitely dangerous. But I did like Emerson and Udogie getting involved in attacks. Udogie was seeing a lot of the ball, which was really, really good. I felt like we were getting, especially in the first half, we were really getting a lack of joy in the wide areas, and that was a big problem because of Brentford's setup in a 3-5-2. If we weren't going to get joy in the wide areas, it was going to be very, very difficult to break them down centrally. And I think we tried our best. We had a couple of moments. Most in the second half, we'll talk about in a bit. The first half, we had a couple of moments to try and break them down, but it wasn't really working. And then out wide, Rico Henry was winning his battle with Kulusevski, and Aaron Hickey was winning his battle with Son. Son didn't really create much, and apart from a few half chances, Son had a volley at the back post. We didn't really create much. So as much as I was encouraged by the possession we were having and how we were looking, I think at the end of the first half, you had to say we looked a bit messy at the back and we weren't really creating. So things had to improve a bit in the second half.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think Ange did sort out a lot of those problems. If you bring up the phone, you'll see the progress bar throughout the game, and it does tell the story of the game, because you see, we had that spell of dominance right at the beginning when Romero scores, and then Brentford come on top of us a bit, and then for the rest of the half it was a bit of both ways. But look at that second half, that progress bar in the second half. We dominated the ball. Apart from a few breakaways from Brentford, where they did come close a couple of times, we absolutely dominated the ball. The majority of the game, I think probably about 80% of that second half was all played in their half. And not only their half, but in their latter stages of the half. So what frustrated me was we had the ball so much in those areas of the pitch, but we couldn't seem to hurt them as much as we would like. I thought Kulusevski, as much as he grew into it a bit in the second half, being able to beat players, his quality on the ball was nowhere near good enough. Son wasn't in the game enough, and I think Richarlison had a really difficult day. I think Richarlison is always going to have those kind of days if you're playing against a low block, right? Because he doesn't have the build-up play. His touch was awful. I felt like every time the ball came to Richarlison, it was just bouncing off him every time. And we did create a couple of chances for him where maybe he could have done better, and I didn't want to bring up this point, but I think if Harry Kane was in those chances, I think we do go on and win the game yesterday.
Yeah, I think he takes one of them for sure. Ange said after the game that he felt like we didn't use Richarlison enough during the game, and like trying to find him in behind and stuff like that. The problem was that because Brentford had the three centre-backs, it was very, very difficult to find that space and pick the lock. And we did it a couple of times. Maddison slipped him through and it forced a good save out of Flecken, and that was probably his best chance. And he had another one where, again, Maddison set him up and he probably picked the wrong corner. He went for the far post when probably the near post was the free corner at that moment, and maybe a more confident Richarlison choose a different option. But apart from those opportunities, it was very few and far between. The crosses in the box, it was just so full of Brentford defenders. It was very hard for Richarlison to get any sort of advantage in the area. The crosses weren't good enough, but it's very difficult when you're pretty much doing a 3-on-1 essentially when it comes to Richarlison. We had other players in the box, but Skip and sometimes it was Udogie. You don't really back them often enough to be getting on the end of things. So it was a very difficult day for Richarlison. As you say, there were times when he was coming deep to pick up the ball, but he just doesn't have the same effect as Harry Kane when he does it. His passing is nowhere near to the level Kane's was. So when he comes deep, I don't really feel like he's that effective. I feel like he needs to be on the last shoulder, penning the centre-backs back. And it was when he was doing that bit, it was really hard to get him involved because of the amount of defenders around him.
Yeah, they brought up this graphic on Match of the Day. I don't know if you saw it, of our positions under our last game for Conte and our positions yesterday on the pitch. I mean, Richarlison was pretty much for Conte playing as like a central midfielder. And then like Richarlison yesterday was our second most furthest player forward. And I think those are the areas he needs to be in more. And I think against other teams he will get more joy. But I think yesterday was a very frustrating outing for all our front three, not just Richarlison. And I feel frustrated that a lot of fans yesterday inside the stadium, and maybe fans I saw over social media and online, were really laying into Richarlison. But I think Sonny and Kulusevski needs to come under the same criticism as well, to be honest.
Yeah, I'd say more criticism, to be honest, because I think the onus, in my opinion, was on them more than it was on Richarlison to really make things happen in the wide areas. I think Richarlison was very much going to rely on the supply to him to open up the chances. And, when we were doing it centrally, he was getting a bit more joy, but from wide areas, there was just absolutely nothing happening. And we weren't able to really hurt them. And that was a big shame, especially in that formation, when they've got the wing backs and they've literally just got them two out wide. I think that's maybe where Postecoglou's system maybe got undone a bit, because the inverted fullbacks coming centrally. It did give us numbers centrally to help keep possession, but when we were trying to threaten from the wide areas, we couldn't get the overloads consistently enough on the wide areas to help out the wingers. And so when the wingers got the ball there in one-on-one situations with a wing back, but also you had the wide centre-backs coming over to help defend as well, and you also had defensive midfielders from Brentford. They had 3 on the pitch, so it was very difficult for us to get any sort of joy in the wide areas, and then it was very clogged up centrally. So I think, but I still believe that the wingers, or the onus was on them more to beat their players and open up space, and they just weren't able to do it.
How do you feel yesterday about the shape on the pitch? Because I felt like, I know it's looked like this in pre-season and we've made it work, but I felt like at times for the majority of the game we were just way too narrow on that football pitch. We won't stretch it enough. We won't be able to get to the proper wide areas and get good crosses into the box.
If you get the average positions up, you can see it for yourself. How we
where do I find the?
Yeah, there it is. And then you go into Tottenham. There you go. You can get that up on the pitch, on the screen. You can see how narrow that is.
Yeah.
You have Kulusevski. Son, by the way, look, he's quite far up. You've got Emerson and Udogie, very narrow. You've got everyone's bunched together essentially, and Kulusevski is our widest player on the right-hand side. But it was very difficult for us to penetrate on the wide areas because of the wingers' lack of ability to beat a man, and then it was very congested centrally, and with Brentford's back 3 and midfield 3, it was always going to be extremely and they're a well-organised team. They defend well. They're all very aggressive, very strong players. It was always going to be very difficult. Apart from the only times we looked really good centrally was when Basuma was taking charge, and he was obviously the man of the match yesterday.
He was awesome.
I think our best moments were all leading from Basuma wriggling in between 2 or 3 players and making things happen. There was one moment where he does a brilliant pre-assist to Maddison. He flicks it round the corner, and Maddison, one of the few times he was able to find a pocket space in the area that he likes it, just in front of the back 4, and he was able to slip in Richarlison and create the opportunity. But unfortunately, those opportunities are few and far between because of how Brentford set up. And this is what I was saying in the preview. Even though I didn't envisage Brentford playing a back 3, I know they're capable of it. I was saying the way Brentford play and set up is actually pretty perfect to battling how we're going to play, because of how congested and how organised they are, and because of they're very good from set pieces and very good in transitions. And I think that's pretty much how it came to be. But I actually think when we come up against teams who are going to be more open, we are going to find a lot more joy, and we are going to find a lot more space. And I think that's what Postecoglou, that's when we're going to really flourish, because we're going to have bodies in and around the midfield when we're playing against teams who are going to be less congested as Brentford and going to offer us more space and back themselves in more one-on-one duels. That's when we're going to really like, for example, I see us getting a lot more joy against Man United on Saturday because they're going to be more open, and so I see us being able to create more chances defensively. Whether we get more joy, we'll have to wait and see. But I think on the ball, I can see us being a lot more creative and having more joy in central areas because of the numbers we're going to have there. But in this game particularly, it was always going to be a difficult start. But considering all those difficulties, I think we did manage the game well. And I thought second half, the pressing, I wouldn't say we were pressing better, necessarily winning the ball back in good areas, but what we were definitely doing is I think Brentford were getting more tired, and they were resorting to a lot more long passes because we kept up our energy, and it meant that we were able to pen them in, and our long passes we were collecting, we were being very aggressive at the back, and it allowed us to recycle possession constantly and kind of have wave after wave of attack. But unfortunately, Brentford were defending very, very well, and it was really hard to break them down.
It was, but let's just touch on Bissouma again, because, again, he was just unbelievable yesterday. We've been banging on about it. This is the year of Bissouma. He's going to have a top season, and he has started the season as he means to go on. I think he was the best player on that pitch, hands down, and the stats show up. I mean, you looked at the stats. I mean, he was like first for everything yesterday. He really was. And you look at that, dribble attempts, 5 successful out of 6. Ground duels, 9 successful out of 12. clearances 2, interceptions 4, and tackles 3. I mean, that is what you call a midfield machine yesterday. And we really saw yesterday that Basuma that we bought from Brighton, didn't we?
Yeah, and this is the Basuma that we knew we could be getting when we signed him from Brighton. This is what we saw when we see him come to the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium and completely dominate midfield, and it's impossible to get the ball off him. I mean, 5 out of 6 dribbles in the central midfield in a congested area. This 5 out of 6 dribbles is impressive, like on its own. Then you add into the fact that you're playing against 3 defence midfielders in a very congested area, like and a very tight stadium like Brentford away. That makes it even more impressive that he was able to find those little pockets of space. He was able to commit players, and what that does is once he commits those players and gets past them, it opens up space for the likes of Maddison, because he draws it. All of a sudden he would have to draw attention. People are going to come to him, and that opens up for space for the other attackers to all of a sudden, you know, make their runs and find space in between the lines and pockets of space. So that was so impressive from Basuma. I thought his passing as well. I'm just reading a stat.
92.2%. Out of 107 passes, that is.
I'm just looking on Twitter. It just literally just flashed up. He completed 22 out of 26 line-breaking passes as well. So that's literally progressive passes in between the lines, finding Spurs teammates. And that's invaluable.
And, you know, we were talking a lot coming into this season, what is the most perfect number 6 for ANGE and what you need to do in an ANGE system. And what you need to do, right, is you need to be combative. You need to win every ball that comes your way. But not only that, but you need to be really good on the ball. And you need to charge into those spaces. You need to be press resistant, and you need to be able to pick those passes. Well, he showed every single one of those facets yesterday.
100%. And as you say, even in the ground duels as well, defensively, 9 out of 12 ground duels is absolutely fantastic for a defence midfielder as well. So he's clearly doing his job defensively fantastically. Albeit, I would say, maybe there was a couple of moments, especially for the second goal, and there was a moment when Vicario punched it out and it fell to Damsgaard on the edge of the box, and he could have scored. I think he could have done a bit better for both those moments. But look, nothing's perfect. But I thought on the ball he was a joy to watch. It was Moussa Dembele-esque, the way he was just gliding past players like they weren't even there, and opening up space. And those are things on the pitch which are hard to quantify, although we've done it with dribbles and stuff. But it's not something that usually grabs the headlines on the pitch, but it's just as valuable as players in the forward line.
You know, everyone talks about Spurs getting back to the Pochettino days, right? And I don't really like sometimes comparing current players to past players, but I am actually really seeing a lot of similarities in those 3 players yesterday. You got Yves Bissouma, who put in a Moussa Dembele-esque performance, like you say. You got Maddison, who put in a very Christian Eriksen performance yesterday, with his deliveries in the box and pure chance creation, and Mickey van de Ven with a Jan Vertonghen-esque performance. And I mean, like, I'm not even like clutching at straws here. I mean, that is exactly what I saw on the pitch yesterday.
Yeah, you can definitely see the similarities in terms of Van de Ven making his Premier League debut. After only Ange said after in his press conferences he'd only had 3 training sessions with the team. He'd only been at Tottenham officially for a week. And so to put in a display like that, so confident, so composed at the back. Yes, there were a few problems. He had a bit of a dodgy moment near the end of the game where he could have given away a penalty, but those are going to be ironed out. He's still a very young player, but he clearly showed maturity beyond his years, the way he was gliding past players. There was one moment in the second half where he's the last man at the back, and Brentford, I think it was Mbeumo, is pressing him, and he's facing his own goal, and instead of passing it back to Vicario like most defenders do, he spun Mbeumo and decided to charge into the space and try and create an attack. And that was like a moment for me. I was like, okay, this guy is clearly very, very confident. This guy is not shy about his qualities, and he's clearly very strong. People, we were talking about the aerial stats before he signed about, they didn't look great. Well, he won 4 out of 5 aerial duels yesterday, so clearly he can use his height and clearly he can win headers. I think his ground duels, he won 5 out of 5 ground duels as well. I think the stats are also on the ground as well.
Had a couple of shots as well.
Had a couple of headers as well. One, I think, was shot over the bar, which maybe he could have done better with. But I think it wasn't a perfect debut, but as debuts go, it was pretty damn impressive, I have to say.
And talking of dribbling out the back as well, I thought he went on a few marauding runs, which we used to see accustomed to Jan Vertonghen. So I think for a first game, three training sessions for him. And not only that, but his defensive partner goes off after 12 minutes.
Yeah.
And when they were practicing in training, I'm sure they weren't practicing with him and Sanchez, they were practicing with him and Romero. So for him to get used to a completely new partner as well in your debut, I think this guy is going to be an absolutely top player for us.
And you can see his pace, what an asset that's going to be. How many times he came and engaged people in the wide areas and just swept up with his pace when it looked like Brentford were going to be on the attack and looking more dangerous. I think it happened countless times during the game. So really good, really impressive opening game from him.
Yeah, and I could definitely see him playing at left back as well in that inverted role. I think he would suit both roles, the left centre back and the left back role. So I think we've got a really top player here. And for as debuts go, I mean, it was an awesome debut for him. In terms of James Maddison, I mean, his debut, he was probably the best of the debutants. I think he really took authority on that pitch. He looked like a leader. He was putting in a few rough challenges. I mean, he could have got sent off at times, but I think once he put on that armband, that was it. I mean, he really, acted like a proper leader on that pitch. He was organising people where to go. On top of that, his chance creation, I mean, 6 key passes in the game is nothing to be sniffed at. His delivery into the box for that first goal was insane. He laid one on for Richarlison where he probably should have done better. I mean, I can't praise Maddison enough for his performance yesterday. And you know what? I was always one. I was excited when we signed Maddison, and I really rated him last season. But I was always one saying, oh, Maddison is a bit overrated. But I was completely wrong on that, and I think he's a top player.
One game you flip, that's it. One game.
No, I was saying that last year as well, but I was talking about when we were linked with him the year before that, last summer.
Oh, I see. Okay.
I thought, I wasn't sure about Maddison, maybe a bit overrated. But after last season and what he showed in his debut and also what he showed in pre-season, I think that this guy is exactly what we've been missing in that area of the pitch. Since Eriksen has gone, we've had no creativity in the midfield whatsoever. And to Leon on his debut, what was it? Like I said, 6 key passes, 2 assists on the day. I mean, come on, man. This guy, he is that guy.
Yeah, he's a damn good player, and I was saying I thought, he's a player who could be playing for City or what, a team right at the top. I really believe in his ability, and I back him to start playing more regularly for England now that he's getting now he's at a club like Tottenham and he's probably going to have a higher profile. I think he's absolutely superb, and I think he showed on his debut. He seemed like he'd been here for ages, the way he was performing and the leadership he was showing, and he got booked for December, like he was going to the referee, remonstrating. He was like trying to back up his teammates at all costs, and he was a bit lucky. Maybe later in the game, made a few fouls, could have been sent off. But I thought that creatively, he was the creative hub of the team, absolutely. And those 6 key passes, you think about all the chances we created, all of them flow through Maddison, and when he gets those pockets of space, he's so hard to stop. You can't give him any time on the ball. I think teams are going to cotton on to that, so he's got to be careful. But I thought that it was a really impressive debut. It was unfortunate not to have more assists. If Richarlison's finishing was a bit better, he probably would have. His set pieces were very, very dangerous as well. Shame he didn't get too many opportunities to shoot. I think he had 1 shot on target throughout the game, which was a pretty tame effort, but I'm sure that will come.
That frustrated me yesterday, actually. I noticed this a lot, where Spurs were passing it around the edge of the box, right? And there were a number of opportunities where Maddison could have swung a shot. Kulusevski could have swung a shot. Songe could have swung a shot. But they always took that extra pass. And we had good opportunities to shoot from outside the box, maybe 25, 20 yards yesterday. But we just kept trying to walk it into the box. And that was a source of frustration for me. I felt like we really could have maybe got more goals, because we've got quality from shooting from range. Son, Maddison, Kulusevski, they can all do it. Mm-hmm. So I don't know why they didn't just pull the trigger at times yesterday. I
agree. That was a bit frustrating as well. Too many passes, maybe. That was maybe one of the criticisms you can say. But look, I'm sure that will come. It's the first game. You can see what ANGE is trying to implement. And I think it's very important at the start of a project, you just stick by that philosophy of how you're trying to play, and the results will start coming, and the football will start coming.
All right, well, all in all, I think it was a really good first tester for Ange Postecoglou in a really difficult game. There are bigger tests to come, and Manchester United next weekend is going to be a big test. But I think you've got to be happy with the way we played our football in the first game. We were aggressive. We went for them. We were playing high up the pitch. We played the majority of our football in the opposition's half. So I think they're a good thing, good signs and good things to come this season. I think there were clearly teething problems within the system and clearly things that we need to work on. And it wasn't the perfect game by any stretch of the imagination. But as a starting block, as a building block, I think it was a really good start to go on.
Yeah, I think as an overall performance, I wouldn't say it was like an amazing performance, but it was definitely encouraging, and that's the most important thing. You can definitely see what Ange is trying to do, and I think the fact that he's already implementing his style to the level that he is so early is very impressive. And I think that overall, I think if you take an objective look, I think the defence was a bit of a mess first half, and we were able to sort it out. Going in attack, we weren't able to create loads of chances, but I think the way we were able to keep possession, the way we were passing it about, the way we were like manipulating the play to open up space, and the way certain players were accommodating into the system like Basuma and Maddison, that was really, really impressive and really encouraging. And you just know it's only going to get better and better as the weeks go on, and that's the most encouraging thing. So overall, I'm very happy. I wouldn't say it was like I got blown away by the performance on the opening day, but I would say as performances go out the start of a project in terms of envisaging what we're doing, I was very, very happy with that.
Absolutely. So look, that is our match review. Please let us know your thoughts on the game in the comment section below.